Hello and welcome to Forward with Avneet Kohli. This is a series that I started amidst the West Asia war because the more founders I spoke to, I realized that amidst the 100 things that they already need to deal with, it was often simple questions with how do I grow my business? How do I raise capital? How do I make sure that my personal wealth is growing alongside my business? A lot of simple things that they needed a second opinion on was not easily available. So I started this series in order to support early stage founders quite literally with how they can move forward in life and business. And ever since, in these last 106 days, I've had the opportunity to chat with some amazing experts across different themes of marketing, branding, fundraising. And today, I have someone very special with me who's going to be talking about the importance of relationship capital. If you are a founder, actually, if you're a professional, I know that we've heard the cliche, your network is your net worth. And as much as, yes, of course, it is a proverb because it holds true, but it's also very, very cliche, right? And when you talk of people having to build a network, having built one myself for 5 years and interacting with founders, with people even right up the ranks, the minute you talk to them about networking, it's often met with hesitation. It's often met with trying to perfect everything. It's often met with self judgment, and it's not second nature. So, today I'm going to be diving into the subject of networking and, more importantly, how can you switch that into building relationship capital with an expert called Hitesh Gossain. My guest today, he is an entrepreneur, a business leader, and a relationship strategist who has spent over 2 decades helping organizations grow across India, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and the United States. Over his career, Hitesh has led P&Ls, managed teams of over 500 people, worked on global M&A and transformation projects, and also been a founder of multiple businesses. Through all of those experiences, the one thing that he noticed as a consistent pattern was that leaders who created outside the box networking outperformed the work that they had. And today, I'm going to bring him up on stage as he has recently launched his book called Quietly Connected, where he goes into a lot of depth of this subject of networking. And together, we are going to be decoding relationship capital. So join me in bringing up Hitesh Gossain. Welcome. Ta-da!
Thank you, Avneet. It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
I'm so glad we're doing this. And for those of you, I met Hitesh almost 15 years ago, and I don't know what it is about, you know, us connecting. We spoke after nearly more than a decade, right, Hitesh? But when we met,
Yes.
it felt like we picked up exactly where we left off. You were in Percept at the time when we met, heading events and celebrity management. And after that, you've gone on to do so many different things. So, firstly, I'm so amazingly happy to see the journey that you've taken, and I hope it's vice versa. But today you've also an author with along with leading all these titles and being an entrepreneur. I am going to ask you to walk us through your journey so that people have a little more context as well. But ultimately, writing a book is the badge of honor that a lot of people hold close to their heart, and you've done that. So many congratulations, and I'm looking forward to delving deep into that. But let's begin with you telling us a little bit about your journey and how did you arrive at becoming an author and picking up a subject like networking to write a book on.
Thank you, Avneet, for setting the context and making me a guest in your amazing show. I've seen a lot of your episodes. It's phenomenal the kind of work you're doing. And I think the context which you set is the bare bone sort of fundamental of my book. So I always say that we were quietly connected for almost 15 years, right? And we were not. I always say that there was so much investment in the kind of conversations I've had with you and a lot of executives that karma always comes back. You always get to. You invited me on this show, right? So what better than that to happen which was backed by a lot of trust. So now introducing myself, I have been, like I always divide my career into three parts. One is the part where I was a corporate executive, did a lot of M&A, corporate sort of development and investments, where I get a chance to, engage with global leaders. And because we were acquiring companies, investing in companies, raising capital, I got to know very human side of those people. Their vulnerabilities, their growth aspiration, the fact that a founder always is scared behind closed doors. An investor is always sort of evaluating multiple options. So there is a lot of human challenges at play, for better word. And the second part of my career was when I was a founder, right? I was very lucky to be having a leadership position probably within 6 years of my graduating, which meant that I was leading large organizations like Percept, Credence, Ethos, last being Lattice Technologies, where I was a CEO. But what happened is during all these times, I realized that what I enjoy most is talking to people and understanding what they do, because that gave me the maximum learnings. If world was a individualist zone, I would have never learned anything about what's going on in the world. And I realized that while that's the basic fundamental of communities that we have been growing up across the thousands of years of evolution, see, we have never lived alone. And suddenly, in this corporate schema of things, we are all alone. We're basically taking decisions on our own. We're not asking people. We are basically lone warriors, and we have romanticized this persona. But our genes are not like that. We have been community participants. And so I
Yeah.
always start talking to people that how are you taking decisions? What is making you progress in your career? How are you raising capital? How are you getting your first customers? And the answer always was relationships. So I realized that the single most important thing of people progressing is relationship in your professional and personal space. Our parents, our grandparents were doing it seamlessly without knowing that there's a science behind it. But we just stopped doing that. However, despite us not actively doing that, still the most important parts of our lives and most important checkpoints were driven by relationships. So I thought maybe it's worth delving deeper. So we did a elaborate research, spoke to 300 plus very senior executives, understood their viewpoints. Findings were amazing. We thought that okay, this deserves to be written in a largest article, which I started writing. Then realized that the article will not do justice to that, because we are talking about various facets of uh, growth professionally and relationships, which are sort of building you. So I thought of writing a book, and about 1.5 years later, on 26th of May, we launched the book. So yeah, that's a story.
Amazing. And that's, as I said, right, writing a book, I think I published my first book in 2021. This was just after the pandemic. And I do understand the amount of work that goes into it, right? How I wish AI existed then sometimes, because I think more than coming up with the book, I think the editing of the book was the
Yeah.
most painful part, because the minute you got one thing wrong, you'd have to go in and adjust everything else. And if you moved one piece out, then the context would get lost completely. So I have utmost respect for people who've managed to get to the other side, because either a lot of people keep thinking about writing a book someday, and the ones who do sometimes don't finish. So the fact that you've written it, finished it, and it's out there for the world to get their hands on, kudos and congratulations.
Thank you, Avneet. And I think a very interesting part is that I have never read a book in my life. So I have read a lot of books in bits and pieces, but I've never got a chance to read a full book. My version of a great book is which I can start somewhere, read an excerpt, make sense out of it, and add some value to myself. And I use the same thesis on writing. It's a bunch of sort of stories and learnings and sort of implementations in sequence. I personally have made a target user like me who wants to sort of understand something but doesn't have 4 or 5 hours back to back to sort of invest in a book. and at the same time wants to derive significant learning and possibly be motivated enough to have a second, third, fourth, fifth session with the book. So I always say that I'm not a book which will be read in a library. It will probably be read in cafes and as a part of laptop bags which are picked up on route to
Hmm. Hmm.
a cab journey or a flight. So that's the kind of way I've
Hitesh,
written
but
it.
why quietly connected?
I think networking as a word is one of the
Hmm.
most misused word. I call it
Hmm.
the second most misused word after strategy.
Hmm.
So
I love
networking
that.
per se.
That's my punchline for today.
So networking basically was made in a very simple way. It's your network working for you, right?
Hmm.
But what happened in the journey is that the importance of working became more and network became less. So it became louder, it became trainable, it became complacent. People started equating a larger pool of people in your LinkedIn as better networking. People started conversing it everything with loud behavior. And
Hmm.
interestingly, everything that works, and I would request everyone who's listening to this, just reflect back on probably the last job they changed or the last important checkpoint in their life, capital raise, change of city, etc. And just think about what made that happen. And that would probably be the quietest, non vociferous, very, very simple person or people who made this happen because they were part of your life. So more important things, the more decision making never happens loud. Like I always the ocean is silent at the depth, etc. There are a lot of quotes around it. So I got very inspired by that. I said being connected is not about being loud about it. So it's not about basically being on stage and having a executive presence and having a firm handshake. It's about having a real investment in relationship equity, and hence it has to be quieter. It need not be sort of over the top, and hence the name. And plus I quite like the name. Generally it had a good ring to it. It's naming the book is there's a actual multiple articles on naming a book because they should not coincide with a book already written, and there are like millions of books written. It should also be easy to understand, and I
But if
somehow
you
didn't
were to
want.
give a synonym, Hitesh, what would you say? If not
Sorry.
networking, if you had to find another synonym with all these 300 conversations that you had, firstly, I'd love to hear some of the insights that came up as a part of those conversations. And if you had to give networking a synonym, what would you say?
I actually don't like the word networking, so I always say relationship
I hate
equity.
it.
Networking is gives you a perception of someone carrying 100 cards, entering an event with an objective of exhausting those 100 cards and probably getting 100 cards in return and figuring out later.
Hmm.
Extremely high cognitive overload, extremely high pressure transactionally, uh,
Hmm.
absolutely zero thoughts on a longer play in that. So I say that networking per se is being made into very transactive, very hunter. So in the B2B sales ecosystem, there are two kind of two kind of leads. One is the hunter, one is the nurturer. So you hunt or you nurture. I think
Hmm.
should have been nurture,
Hmm.
but it became hunt, and relationship actually is the nurture part of it. So I personally think that if you want the result to come in immediately, you're not doing relationship for sure, and
Hmm.
networking typically never works. So I think the idea is that your network will only work for you when they trust you, and trust never happens immediately. So you need to invest
That's
time, yeah, and that's how it would be.
You hit the nail on the head. That's something that I truly believe in, right? There is very fine line. I think what you're talking about, firstly, there are so many dimensions that I can go deep into, right? Which is social media versus having a social network. So having, let's say, your Instagrams and your LinkedIn's having so many connections, I find it so often that, and I actually do something consciously now, which is I might have, I don't know how many followers, but whichever connections I have, I make it a point that once a week I reach out to like at least 20 people saying that we may have connected somehow, but if we haven't spoken, let's get on an online coffee and get to know each other. Because there's no point in having a connection that you've never spoken to and could have, no value to add. And what I've realized is coming back to trust, right? When um, Hitesh, until when I was with everything that I saw with networking events, right? I would organize. I spent probably 5 years hosting so many different networking events, and I would see a few different strains. Firstly, I would see a lot of them were women's networking events, so I would see women arrive without knowing how to introduce themselves, right?
Yeah.
So they've come to an event, but they're very closed off, and if someone says hi, they will not make eye contact, they will not make a handshake, be open to a conversation. If somehow they've done that, they're not sure of how to introduce themselves. Most often, I would see that. And then I would see a flip side of women that were almost abrasive, right? Almost unaware of reading the room and the energy of the room and conducting themselves accordingly. So, what are your thoughts on something like this? Did you see these patterns? And tell us a little about those 300 conversations.
So, I don't think events actually are networking, which is a very contra view of this. You meet people, there are numerous occasions. Events is one of them. So are your parent teacher meetings, so are your grocery runs, so are everything. Basically, one thing which I vociferously say is that please don't think of events as networking. And the
Hmm,
second part is that we have all did a little bit of marketing. We understand a little bit of businesses, right? If I have to achieve something, which means my product has to sell, I need to know three things, right? What exactly is my product?
hmm,
Who is supposed to buy my product? And
hmm,
what is the communication to that person about my product?
hmm,
So if I have to sell a better cleaning liquid to a homemaker, I have to say one is it's a cleaning liquid for dishes. Then it cleans dishes and it wants to engage with homemakers who have dishes. And the communication is it's organic and it doesn't harm the nature and your hands are better. Right. This is like the basic fundamentals of establishing a product market fit, right? Now we are a product. We need to achieve same thing. We need to achieve a result which is driven by someone doing what we want them to do for us, right? So it starts with what do I want? Now that is where I've seen almost all of my respondents almost stutter because like if I ask them, okay, if you could meet anyone or any kind of people, who would you want to meet? And what are you to them? Like what do you want to tell them? Who are you? Now that's the very complex part. And for a very few who actually could understand that, I say, what is the message you want to give them? Which means if if you want to raise capital and you want to raise $5 million, which is a Series A capital, you are a let's say clean tech organization. There are a bunch of 25 VCs who invest in clean tech in Middle East. You want money from them. Do you know this? If you do, then if you have a conversation, you say, hey, my name is this, I run this organization, we are in clean tech, we are raising capital only to those 25 people or to the people who know those 25. That's it. So it's actually very 101. You are in an event, you don't do that because then you are trying to establish relationships. So I always say that you have
and
relationship
there's
with
no
people.
trust.
So trust is the most critical part. That's why chapter one. So
Hmm,
but trust is a very interesting thing. You can actually borrow trust, which means if Avneet wants to reach out to someone who she doesn't know, but Hitesh knows, and
hmm,
Avneet knows Hitesh, then she borrows trust from Hitesh saying, hey Hitesh, can you introduce me? That's what we
hmm,
do on a referral. But Hitesh is very worried because he doesn't know what Avneet is actually wanting. Avneet said,
Hmm.
"Hey, Hitesh, introduce me to Joseph." Now, I want to know honestly that am I actually introducing with right information? So Avneet should tell me, "Hey, Hitesh, I'm raising capital. Can you introduce Joseph?" And say, "Hey, Avneet wants to not raise capital from you, but just understand how raise capital works and wants to have a coffee." I vouch for her ethics and her business acumen. I don't vouch for a business because I can't.
Hmm.
Now, this is what I call the T minus one, which means the T0 is when you achieve what you want, when you want exactly what. But no one can make it happen except you. What they can do is they can get you on the table and they can have you start the conversation. So, if there's one thing you want to do, you would never want to ask someone to get you a thing done. You just want a seat on the table. You don't want a job, you want a seat on the table. You don't want funding, you want a seat on the table. You don't want to be married to the right person, you just want to be a seat on the table, on the same table. Then you figure out and you take a call. When people start figuring out on your behalf, then they have a significantly high cognitive overload, and then they actually don't do this. And then we blame our so-called networks for that. So
You know,
that's
you
the
touched upon
execution part.
something it's something very important that you said, right? When you're asking somebody for an introduction, right? Firstly, what I find very often, and this happens to me all the time, right? People see everything and everyone that I'm connected to, especially in the region. That's one of the things that I do, help people access the market, right? And the reason they want to work with me is because I have the connections in this market. But what I find is when they approach me, they know the value that I can add to them, right? But their proposition, because when I'm making an introduction, it's my credibility at stake, right? So today, if that person cheats the person that they I introduced them to, or is not credible, or I do not have enough information on the context of the conversation. Like I've had experiences, Hitesh, where I've known people and they're like, okay, we want to connect with X, H, and I. I've made that introduction, and later on I figure that, oh my god, this person was is now selling property to them, which was never a part of the you know uh, what we anticipated at both ends. And then it becomes like, and what I'm seeing as a result of this is very often when people are not clear on their proposition or trust is missing in the relationship, the person, your networks close down because either you're not perceived right or the person does not feel certain enough to open a door for you. So what could have a ripple effect, people hold back either because you're not clear in your ask, and even if you are, maybe trust is amiss, and the other person, even the middle gate, needs to you need to find a way to get them to do what you want them to do, right? So which is where I feel like a lot of these conversations fizzle out.
So, trust is a baseline. So, if there is no trust, no one does anything for anyone because that's how the world works, right? We have always seen trust driving almost every decision we take. So, once trust is established, then it comes to the right expectation, as you rightly said. So, when there's trust, so when you trust someone, you trust someone
Hmm.
on ethical levels, you trust someone on they will never say bad things about you. And then when you're clear, so see, that's why I'm saying if you start recommending someone for results, then you're putting your credibility on the table. But when you say, you know what, Hitesh is a great guy, okay, he's a real estate person, I don't know if what he wants from you, but I personally think that you guys will have a great conversation. I think you guys should have a coffee. So what you have
Hmm.
done is you have clearly demarcated what you know and what you don't know.
Hmm.
Obviously, Hitesh has to take care of that because Hitesh wants to not reduce the trust or probably keep
Use the
engaging.
social currency wisely.
So, it's like the classic, the golden, egg wala duck, etc. But it's actually fairly simple. It's like your For people who come from slightly middle class kind of backgrounds, like me, who have come from very tightly knit communities,
Hmm.
communities knew everything about each other. So
Hmm.
your house, your mom knew that the neighbor's kid is not well. So they will not ask, but your mom will send them a dalia in the evening.
Hmm.
That means that there's a trust that I'll make food, you will eat it, and I don't want your mother to work. So there is, when trust happens, then suddenly the barriers of communication, expectations change, and delight happens. So you will
Hmm.
realize, and while it's a very undertone, but you'll realize that when you go to your hometowns or
Hmm.
the place where you had your childhood, there's
Hmm.
people say there's an aura of comfort.
Hmm.
What that aura of comfort is, that your community is trust driven. You're no longer acting to be someone else. You can basically say that, hey, I'm not feeling well. Hey, my electricity bill is due, can you pay it for me? You don't have to ask, hey, are you free?
Hmm.
And when that happens, you realize that the anxiety of communication reduces dramatically. And you need to also understand that these communities were not made for the smartest cuffling wearing people. They were people who couldn't speak well, they had no idea, they had limitation of how to, sort of communicate in the right words, but work got done. People knew each other and people got things done. And we just have to replicate that sort of trust in our networks. So if we can have
Hitesh, how
networks where
would
people
you
trust you,
differentiate network and relationship capital?
because network is network. Basically, network is a set of people around you,
Hmm.
and so network is a transaction. Networking is transactive. Relationship is asset.
Hmm.
So when you want to do something immediately, you sort of monetize your network.
Hmm.
You never monetize your relationship. See, that doesn't sound correct. That's a sounds incorrect if I say I want to monetize my relationship, because
Hmm.
relationships get nurtured and they get engaged with, because monetization happens on something very shallow, and relationships come back for you. You talk about your problems, it gets solved. So I always say, when you started this session by saying, there's a cliche. It's not a cliche. Network is your net worth. It's the same reason why you your parents network is your network. It almost was given to you as a legacy. Your uncles, your aunties, your nephews, your friends from your community, they came to you as a legacy, almost as much as the toys you got, or the dollars you got from your uncle and aunties. So there was a capital money, but there was a relationship money also. If you
Hmm.
have, if you think about your kids, if you think about your nieces, they can make things happen because they have your relationship equity as a legacy. So it's
Hmm.
technically an asset class, which you have to think like something which you will bequeathing your kids, and they can be better equipped to handle life situation because they know someone because of you. And we are doing this, so it's not new. It's not that we have never done this. All our uncles and aunties who have helped us, get a certificate, or traveled with us when our dads and moms were not well, or represented us somewhere. They all have done this already. So you have a bunch of people around you which you didn't meet first time, which you got as a legacy. So I think it's an asset class. Network as a word, again, as I said, that has a connotation which is incorrect, and hence has become like more like a, and that's why people are very scared of the word. So like, if you, my book is what to do when you hate networking,
Hmm.
because people
What
are,
do you do?
yeah. So because networking is complex. You have to look like what you are not. You have to impress people who you don't know. You have no idea what will happen, and human mind cannot decipher anxiety. We are not
Hmm.
wired to understand ambiguity.
Hmm.
So once you're sure that, hey, for example, when you were messaging me that, hey, Hitesh, will you come on my show? You didn't have that anxious that Hitesh will say no. Probably Hitesh will say, hey, not this day, next day. But Hitesh will not say no. So that makes your anxiousness low, and hence your comfort with reaching out becomes better. But imagine you saying the same thing to one of your LinkedIn connections who you have never met.
Hmm.
So I think when the world becomes very simple, you only talk to people warm. You never have a cold conversation in your life. When everyone you talk to always says, "Hey, what's up?" instead of saying, "Who are you?" then the amount of, sort of wall which is between you and the person almost collapses. It's a, it's like a comfort zone. It's like my
Hmm.
people. And when you have to engage with your people, then what networking? It's just a great conversation which makes things happen for you.
With ease. I hear you. So, Hitesh, let's say someone's listening to this right now, right? And that is sitting on the fence with knowing that networking is, or, having relationships that can move the needle for you is important, but feels awkward or feels like, where do I begin? Or has that hesitation of, what do I say? How are people going to think of me? All those questions that might be, and honestly, I welcome questions, right? Anyone that's watching this that probably wants to comment, we can take up your comments and have Hitesh answer these questions as well. So send them across. But I'm curious, if someone's at the fence and they need to start out with not networking and building relationship capital, what is the first thing that you'll tell them to do?
So I have this interesting, framework of a 3-3-3. I say 3 outreaches a week, 3 good conversations a month, and 3 good catch-ups in a year. So just talk to 3 people and say, it's not about you. Just try to understand what they are doing. Just call someone you have not spoken to for 15, 20 years. That girl who was with you in nursery class, who probably you heard last that she went to Jalandhar, but you have no idea what she does now. Or that guy who was with you, sitting next to you in your first job, who used to be, getting you coffee, but now you have no idea where that guy is. Just call them, reach out to them on Facebook, on WhatsApp. Okay, hey, you know what, I was, doing something and I just remembered you and thought of passing a hi. When the conversation starts, ask about them and just do it 3 times a week to 3 people you already know. No cold conversation, by the way.
Hmm.
And just try to have a deeper conversation. What's your family doing? Hey, the same thing which we discuss 3 times a month, and try
Hmm.
to catch up with them 3 times a year, which is once a quarter.
Hmm.
Networking is, it's all a lot about depth. It's not about width, because it's not what you can do for me. It's what your network can also do for me, right? So
Hmm.
we don't understand the 6 degrees of separation. You're not trying to get me to solve it for you. You're trying to get me and my network to solve it for you. So if
Hmm.
a Hitesh tells Avneet that, hey, Avneet, I've got a property in Cochin which is under litigation and I have no idea, Avneet doesn't say, hey, I'll solve it for you. Avneet say, hey, I think I know someone who can solve it for you.
Hmm.
But Hitesh has to say that. For that,
Hmm.
Avneet has to ask that. So
Hmm.
I always say that it's very simple. Just do what you were doing as a child. When you're getting bored, you just went to a friend's house and said, "No, let's catch up. Let's go for a quick chai or whatever." Just do that. And it also is very relaxing. So,
Hmm.
because we are under high stress environment, we are not discussing our life's challenges more often. It also is almost a diffuser of your stress. So
Hmm.
you may achieve what you're wanting, professionally and personally, but you will definitely have a lighter day that day.
Hmm.
So nothing the problem with me is my answers to you will be never be complicated. So you
Hmm.
may think that this sounds too simple, but that's how it is. We have to think like that only.
I am a complete propagator and recipient of simple things. I'll be honest with you, I'm someone who's a voracious listener, right? So I listen to a lot of podcasts, a lot of talks, I read a fair bit. I'm trying to inculcate a deeper habit of reading, and I see that anyone that has a mind of their own has a framework and a system. And people take a lot of pride in complicating things and using language that is much harder than can be retained by an individual. So I, at the moment, am reading a book. I'll spare the author his name, but I've had to restart this book 3 times already because by the time I get to chapter 4, I've forgotten chapter 1. So I'm a complete propagator, and I welcome things which are simple to retain. But Hitesh, I love the 333 philosophy, right? Begin with people that you know, three people that you've not spoken to, three people that you can connect with, and three people that you can meet in a quarter. Did I get that right?
In a year, not a quarter, just three in a
In a
year.
year, in a year, in a year. Sorry, three times meet a year. Okay. There's a question that's come in, which is if a new network or relationship, hold on, network or relationship something we should seek to create and nurture with intention or just build on people we already know? Should we try to cultivate a new network or just build on people we know?
So it's a very interesting question. So uh, it's two parts. One is the people you already know. So
Hmm.
they are the kind of people who will solve things for you.
Hmm.
And because there has been published research about weak ties, which basically means that the people who are second degree, who are beyond your first degree, actually are more helpful to you because they
Hmm.
have no biases against you. So if
Hmm.
you know enough people, you need to make sure you know them well. And I'll talk about what well means. So, so that's the first part. Now, second part is think about people who you would probably want to engage with 5 years from now because you're giving trust some time,
Hmm.
and it's very easy. It's extremely easy because just meet the people you would be 5 years from now and ask them this question: that who are the kind of people you engage with,
Hmm.
and try to inculcate relationships with those which becomes trust driven in about 2 3 years. See, it's think you have to think of it like the mutual fund thing, that you keep investing. Don't withdraw when you really need it. But when you have when in mutual funds they say if you have money, just put it in that and forget it. I always say
Hmm.
if you have time, just talk to people and forget it, and always talk about what you can do for them.
Hmm.
Because when you want something from them, it should not appear as if you just woke up and are asking for a favor. It's because you are also uncomfortable doing that.
Hmm.
Solve for people. You're going, you found, let's say, a nice bangle, which one of your friends said, "Ki, I'm thinking of it." Take a picture, send the picture to your friend. Ki, hey, I'm in Jaipur, I'm seeing this. Should I pick it up for you? Your friend can say, no, not really. But your friend realizes that Hitesh actually remembers. See, the important part is if you think about how can I make someone's life better today,
Hmm.
then you start thinking of things that are interesting. So, answering Aisha's point, divide into parts, go really deep into people you already know. Because see, you're not doing it for only professional success. No, you're doing it for basically growing socially as a human being also. So it's not
Hmm.
just about you basically want to talk about your child, your spouse, your relationships, your travel plans. You're talking about a lot of things, right? So it has to be around something which makes it worthwhile for the social part also. And for professional, you may know a lot of people who can connect you to your set of expected ICPs, ideal connection profiles. But start investing in people you would want to meet later, and do it very actively, very giving first. And
Hitesh, what do
that's
you think about birthdays? Do you think that strategy works, that you remember everybody's birthday and call them on their birthday and wish them? Or do you seem like, Arey, ye to matlab, like I know some people really value it, right? But I, for example, I'm a sucker. Like I don't remember dates at all. But I'm the first person. If you call me and tell me Avneet mujhe ye chahiye, I'll be the first person to help you out. But don't expect me to remember your birthday and call you and wish you and all of that. So what do you think about that? Is birthdays a good strategy?
so imagine a world we have come to where birthdays and strategy are in the same sentence. You know, so like what how can see you need to have a reason to reach out.
Hmm.
Birthdays, new year's, festivals. See, you just go back a couple of 100 years. Religious festivals were not made to uh, engage religion. They were made for people, communities to engage together for
Congregate.
something.
Hmm.
And Hence, that was a reason for people to say, hey, long time, what's going on? Hey, I saw you
Hmm.
doing this. These are conversational enablers. Birthday
Hmm.
happens to be one, but there are a lot more. LinkedIn gives you 20,000 reasons. Someone has changed a job, someone has changed cities, someone has posted a picture of going to Bahamas, someone is wearing an amazing shirt which you like. Logic is, do you think it's something which you want to talk about genuinely? I don't, I'm not a big proponent of what should be done. I am a big proponent of what makes you feel comfortable. If
Hmm.
you love wishing people on birthdays, for example, I'll give you a hack. I wish people a birthday a day before their birthday. And I ask them,
Hmm.
what's your plan for tomorrow?
Hmm.
Now, what that does is, I know that on the day of birthday, you'll get probably 2,000 messages. And half of them
Right.
will be, templatized from a WhatsApp or from a LinkedIn, right?
Hmm.
I don't like that. I want to genuinely be thoughtful about it, at the same time, appear thoughtful about it. So I send
Hmm.
a day before. So I don't know it's a strategy or not, but I really think that I want you to respond also. And I imagine me getting 100 messages, I am not able to respond. So how would you respond? And if you will not respond, I'll feel bad. So I want reciprocation. So I will message you when you are more likely to respond. So I message people 4 days before their exams that hope your preparation is going well. Let's talk once you're done. I don't message them a half an hour before the exam because that's the time where you're not reading your messages.
Hmm.
So again, I think a simple answer to a very complicated question again, but that's it's as simple as that. And I think I have written very extensively about a framework called Access and Awareness Framework.
Hmm.
You have access to a lot of people. When you say access means you can just talk to them, but you're not aware of what they are up to. They are not aware of what you're doing, and you're not aware of anything about them. So,
Hmm.
because you're not aware, your access starts dying because you don't have enough conversation metrics to do.
Hmm.
So, I have met so many people who said, okay, I wish you had told me earlier. It's almost a syndrome. So, like I tell you that, hey, I was struggling to meet someone in Google. You said, Arey, my cousin is in Google. Why didn't you ask? But how would I
Hmm.
ask? So,
Hmm.
my awareness of the fact that your cousin is in Google will come from that first conversation which I do. Okay, tell me about yourself. When
Hmm.
Avneet says, hey, you know what, I tried this, now I'm a coach, I'm based in Dubai, I start absorbing that. And then my awareness of Avneet gets better. I know that what you do. Hence, when I find something which can be valuable to you, I offer you. But when I think of something which I think you can add value to me, I ask. So the birthday is a trigger of awareness, among other things. So you need
Hmm.
to be really aware of what your network is doing. And I have this question to ask to everyone who's on this live session or watching this later. That are you actually aware of five of your best friends from school, what they're up to?
No.
And if you're not, then the question is, can you actually call them and say, hey, I want help in this? The answer is yes. But the beauty is you have no idea what to ask help on because you don't know what they're doing. So there
Hmm.
are a bunch of people out there who can do anything for you, who are just waiting for you to ask that question. And you're not asking that question because you don't know enough about them. So isn't this a very simple loop to complete? All it takes is a little bit of call over a weekend. Hey, I'm now in this city, married, my kid is this, struggling with this. I just think I will probably get diabetes. I'm eating a lot of sugar. What about you? And the guy says the same thing. And then one fine day, that person's wife is a doctor and you need a doctor and you call him. And the guy says, of course, man, this is a call. Just call her. So I always say that, don't wait for a I wish you had told me earlier situation. Get to know your deeper networks better.
Hitesh, what I see as a pattern, especially, because let's talk about founders and business owners, right? Firstly, they're super crunched for time, right? There's already thousand things that they're firefighting. Now, with the open time that they may have, many of them look at, firstly, they mix up the lines with between networking and business development and customer acquisition and lead generation. All four of them are interconnected, and very often people are doing one, but the application for that occasion is another, right? That is one thing that I see. Now, for somebody that is really short on time, right? um, if you had to use tech, of course, that's where now Facebook gives you, a reminder that it's so and so's birthday. That's one way in which technology can be used to, help to enable you to cultivate and maintain your network, right? I think you touched upon a very beautiful thing, which is you have access to a lot of people, but how do you maintain those relationships, which becomes really hard. So, would in a founder's case, what would the application be? Even to call, I have seen hesitation with what do I talk about. So people call when they need something. The other person receives it as, oh, you're calling because you need something. But the same person will also, भाई मैंने यूं ही कॉल किया है, I've just called you like that only. Like, in today's times, people don't do that. So what are some, if you had to give us some hacks or some tactics, right? With, you don't want to come across as there's hesitation with saying that I've just called without a reason, but you don't want to say that I need this and this is my agenda. So how do you tread that?
Okay. I think we just discussed this when Aisha asked this question. So I'll just break this question also in two parts. The
Hmm.
founder wants a few things professionally,
Hmm.
and a founder has some friends,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
When it's a friend, you focus on increasing awareness. Just get to know what your friends are doing.
Hmm.
Typically, there's a homogeneity in your background. So if you're a founder, you'll probably know your friends who'll probably be founders, who'll be probably knowing the kind of people you will probably want to hire or invest from. Just get to know about them better. And
Hmm.
again, the question I always ask is, especially to people who are founders, that do you actually know who of your relatives are founders? So the point is, there would be a couple of them who would have raised capital from similar funds as you. They would probably be sharing a dorm room with you 10 years back, 15 years back. They would probably again be the ones who will be sharing the flight with you when you were taking a flight from your office to your hometown. They would probably be the same people who were in the school with you or in the same locality as you. So that's the part about your friends, because they don't want a reason. You call them, you say, hey, you know what? All great, what's going on? And I've just spoken to you a week back. I'm stuck. Let's catch up for a coffee. I want to talk to you. The beauty of that part is no one says no to that.
Hmm. On
I
the social
today
side of
morning
things. Hmm.
Today morning I had a call with a friend who went to a different institute. We were together like in our early childhood, and we were chit chatting. And he raised, you know what? I was about to raise some capital from this fund, and I said, "Oh, but this fund doesn't invest this much money. They do Series B. You're raising angel. What? It's not a correct fitment." And he was super excited. He had a half an hour call with me. I just explained him how fund decide their target startups. That's the only thing I explained to him, which I thought was very simple, but he didn't understand that earlier. The second part is the people who the early clients or the investors, etc. And the answer this is same as what we told Aisha about what you want to reach later. So if the answer is I want it tomorrow, I don't think any framework of at least from my book will work for that. It has to
Hmm.
be nurtured. But if you want to say, okay, you know what, I'm raising angel. If I become big, I have no idea how to hire a CFO, how to hire a CTO, how to raise Series C, and I want to engage with those people right now, then just do what I said. Reach out to them either through a common network or try to solve a problem for them.
Hmm.
Tell them, okay, hey, you know what? I was doing this. I thought this would be interesting for you. Try to add value, invest in the trust, and when the right time comes, and if you need that, then say, you know what? I want to hire a CTO. Can you help me understand the ecosystem? And they will go length and breadth for that. But again, no, you can't cut a tree the day you plant a sapling. The sapling has to become the tree, right?
Of course, in this instant world, I get your point on how these things are nurtured over time. I think where a lot of people might hesitate would also be value asymmetry, right? That okay, this person is someone that's a race series C and is so accomplished. I am probably 10 years younger, what value can I add to this person? And I think that's a great question for anyone to reflect on, right? Very often we don't have that answer. Like, there are, for example, the kind of work that I'm in, I do have access to a lot of people, and but maintaining those relationships for me becomes extremely hard. So what I personally hate is, if there is a important festival, everyone will be sending you, happy Diwali, happy Holi, and it's a forward message that's sent to all. I don't think that, kind of cuts it, right? It's not moving the needle in the relationship. At the same time, for someone that is that high up there, what value can I add? That is a question that I do ask. And sometimes I do tend to hold back if I don't have the answer quite immediately, but I try to pop up in their world, right? Like, let's say I came across a funny reel, right? There's something that I'll send across to them. I'll ask them for feedback, right? I'm working on something, with where you are in your life. Can you share some feedback? That has worked for me, right? Like, asking for, like, if you had to critique this, what would you say? Asking them for an alter opinion, that is something that's worked for me if I don't have value to add.
Again, I think this is a subjective question, and I think this. I'll also add Aisha's follow-up question that if there are people who I want to meet 5 years from today, why will they agree to have coffee with me? And the
Hmm.
answer is that there are people who are common to you. So you are so okay. The first principle is you're not talking to anyone cold.
Hmm.
So there's someone who is vouching for some aspect of you, which is interesting
Hmm.
for the other person, and it's your
Hmm.
responsibility to tell that person. So, for example, if Aisha wants to meet Avneet, but Aisha doesn't know Avneet, and Aisha knows someone who knows Avneet well, Aisha says, "Hey, I'm a design professional, and I'll probably want to set up a business later. Avneet is a successful business owner. Can you ask her to have a coffee with me? I'll host the coffee, and I would
Hmm.
love to talk about my ideas, and probably, and as Avneet mentioned on the post that she's looking for access to colleges, I probably can do that for her." So what
Hmm.
happens? That person calls Avneet and he says, "Why not?" So
Hmm.
Aisha says, "You know what? Let's start with what you want. You just mentioned on your post that looking for access to NIFT Delhi. I know the principal. I'll introduce you." So that's part
Hmm.
is done. Now he says, by the way, I was thinking of doing something later. I just want to make sure that I'm on the right path. What should I think? And done. Nothing expected. No email from your side. No introductions needed. Nothing. Avneet
Hmm.
goes back very refreshed because this is the first time someone has not asked her anything.
Hmm.
So she goes back. Then Aisha, on her way back, finds out that the principal has changed. She messages Avneet, "Hey, by the way, that principal has changed. Let me send you a revised note." It means Aisha is still thinking. Now,
Hmm.
Avneet feels almost like a pseudo guilt that why am I not doing anything for her? Then Avneet
Hmm.
says, "Can I do something for you, Aisha?" Aisha says, "Nothing right now. We'll definitely let you know when I need something." So now it's
Hmm.
sorted. Now all Aisha has to do is keep chit chatting with Avneet. Now,
Hmm.
do I need to tell you a happy Diwali or a happy birthday? It's a pain how well I know Avneet. All I need to do is go to your Facebook and go to your LinkedIn to understand what you like, what you don't like. And
Hmm.
that's it. Also, the interesting part is, a lot of people ask me that, isn't it too much to do with a lot of people? Because,
Hmm.
I'm talking to hundreds of people and I have to remember what they do and, their awareness, etc. And this is, again, that's why I love American ecosystem. They have done a research on everything. So there's
Hmm.
a researcher called Dunbar who basically
Hmm.
says how many people can you humanly remember or handle, and the number is
Hmm.
around 150, which means your human mind cannot manage an understanding of more than 150 people. Out of those
Hmm.
150, about 70, 80 are already gone with your relationships, friends, common. So you only have a
Hmm.
window of about 50 to 60 more people,
Hmm.
which also tells you they are like important. So you can't waste that window on anyone who's not really a right fit. So
Hmm.
your first part of social depth is covered by the first 40, 50, which are already there. And the next 50, 60 are the ones you want to reach.
The
And there's
professional.
already enough research to say that just don't go beyond that.
Hmm.
So I think once you're very careful, it's like, my mom used to say in the refrigerator. that if you have to put the vegetable for today, you have to remove the vegetable yesterday because there's not enough space, right? So when you're very
Hmm.
clear that the space is limited, your ability to decipher your relationship outreach is limited, you become
Hmm.
very careful.
Hmm.
And when you're careful, you invest that much time in that relationship because then it deserves that kind of energy.
Hmm.
And
I
then
hear you.
just start solving for each other.
Yeah, I think everything begins with intentionality, right? If you start with a negative intention of what can I extract from this person and do it fast and do it tomorrow, I think that relationship has is very short lived. But if your intent is to want to nurture something, which is the first reframe, the second is to give value, the third is not have an immediate ask, but just nurture something for the value that it may compound to, and knowing that with the limited bandwidth that you have, I think you tied it in beautifully, because that just helps people quantify, right? That I have headspace for 50 people. Now, at least on the professional side, my social media and my whatever could be XYZ, but my 50 close people that I can pick up the phone on, I curate that very, very carefully. So I think you articulated that beautifully. I also didn't realize time, Hitesh, talking to you about this subject, right? I usually do these conversations at a maximum of 40, but I think it has been such a rich conversation that I also didn't want to stop. I do want to park it at a final question, which is, are there any tools like, that you use in order for you to manage your network? Like, I know of, I think there are companies like Clay, etc., that allow you to maintain a personal CRM, for instance. Do you use any of this? And if there are tools, and if any other parting frameworks that you think could help people initiate and maintain networks, I think that would be extremely valuable.
So two questions, so two answers.
Yeah.
First is there a tool? The answer is I have used all of them.
Hmm.
Dex, Clay, Tally, a lot of them. I don't think they are basically, they treat you like a corporate. So basically, they are like a PR. They call themselves PRMs, which is the CRM. You just replace the C with a P. So corporate customer relationship
Yeah.
goes to personal relationship. I think that
Right.
a product is needed, which I am building as we speak. And a
Hmm.
lot of that is already covered in my book. Shout out, you should buy the book. The second part is the part about one interesting framework which can help you kickstart it. So
Hmm.
again, I love models. So then there is a very interesting matrix I tell people, which is the time trust matrix. Uh,
Hmm.
Basically, people, the best conversations are where there's a lot of time and a lot of trust. Now that doesn't happen easily because there will be situations where you have time but very little trust, like interviews. When you go for an interview, you have a time allocated 30 minutes, but there's zero trust. Then there are times where there's high trust, low time. You are rushing to the airport and you find a friend and say, "Oh, what's up? I'm just waiting for a flight. I just, let's catch up again," right? And then there
Hmm.
is low trust, low time. That's your meeting in the events. When you meet people, "Hi, my name is Avneet. What's your name? Yeah, I'm in Dubai. Can I get your card? I'll get back to you later." There's no
Hmm.
time, there's no trust. And then
Hmm.
there are conversations where you have a drink with a friend of yours, you're talking about life. That's high trust, high time.
Hmm.
All the quadrants need to reach high trust, high time. So my
Hmm.
hack is identify what conversation is that. So if it is high on time, try to artificially build trust. If
Hmm.
it's high on trust, artificially build time. Which means in these example is, if the interview is there, focus the first 10 minutes to build trust. Because the person is not taking you for skills. Skills
Hmm.
are abundant, skills are achievable. What they're taking you is for trust. Can
Attitude.
you manage your work better? Build on that. So talk about your experience in a similar scenario so that the person starts trusting that this person can take care of that. Now
Hmm.
your friend bumps you at the airport. You're rushing to the flight.
Hmm.
As soon as you settle down in your flight, call.
Hmm.
"Hey, you know what? Couldn't speak. Let's talk now. My flight is 10 minutes to go." What you have done is you have artificially increased the time. So that high on attention recall time, which you just clicked out of, you re-clicked in, and the time duration became higher. So now
Hmm.
that becomes an extremely rich conversation because you actually met someone, there's very high trust, and your conversation continued. And
Hmm.
if you are an event, which is the most complex situation, try to build on time by reducing number of meetings. So let's say you're in an event, you decide, I always say just meet three people. So you're there for
Hmm.
2 hours, half an hour you'll obviously have nice lunch. So you have 1.5 hours, half an hour per person.
Hmm.
And you invest in talking about them and building trust.
Hmm.
So in your mind, if you think that every conversation I'm having with the purpose of building my relationship equity, if I can take it to the quadrant of high trust and high time, I have cracked it open. So if
Hmm.
that happens, then it becomes simpler, and there's no hack to it. It's extremely simple to follow. There will be enough, and it's very easy to also understand that what kind of conversation is this. And I've seen it happening. I've worked a couple of years, more than 2 decades, so I understand how it works, and I have never seen it not working. So it's actually as simple as that.
Hitesh, I absolutely loved what you said, and I think you've tied everything that we've spoken about so beautifully. And also, it's very actionable. So, I love the fact that this conversation today had frameworks, that had a model, and everyone knows that yes, networking is important, but very often they get stuck at the periphery, either with their personal hesitation or not knowing what to do and how to do it. I think today's
Yeah.
conversation was extremely rich for someone that knows they need to do this, hasn't done it yet, and they walk away with some tools in their armor. So, kudos to you on this. I'm really, really grateful for your time and really cracking open this topic so beautifully. And whoever's watching, Quietly Connected is now on Amazon. Tell us about where
Yeah.
they can go grab your book.
Yeah, it's on Amazon. You can get a paperback in Singapore, India, and Dubai now. Kindle is available across the world. Uh, it's extremely simple in its language. I don't understand complicated jargons. I have exercises. I want you to start executing on it. And whatever little reviews I have seen, they're all 5 star, and they all have spoken about how they have started incorporating some learnings in their real life and have started seeing changes. So extremely encouraging for me. I'm very grateful to my publishers to be giving me this opportunity to publish it. And thank you so much, Avneet, for giving me this time to talk about it. And it's almost, like having a coffee with a close friend where other people are watching and hopefully getting some value out of it. Thank you so much. It has been a lovely evening for me.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to hold you with me backstage whilst I wrap this up and we
Absolutely.
continue this conversation. Thank you for being with us, Hitesh. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we wrap up what it means to be quietly connected, not be networking, and actually build relationship capital instead. If you looked at today's conversation, I think there were tons of simple frameworks, simple mental models that you can apply in your real life. I'd love to hear back from you on this conversation. Feel free to drop in a comment, share it with someone that could, take value from this. And you know exactly where you can find Hitesh's book. I also want to share with you something that I'm doing about less than 2 weeks from now, which is a very special workshop called Momentum Reset. Today, we've been talking about networking, but very often when we look at founders, it is they land up doing a lot of things that take up their time and attention. Networking may be one of them at these events, which I think Hitesh very beautifully has advised on how you can navigate them. But talking of refocusing and realigning your priorities, that is a workshop that I'm hosting, which is free to attend. It's happening on the 1st of July as a part of the mid year reset with 6 more months to go. So, the link to register for the same is on my LinkedIn profile. And if you've been someone that has been feeling scattered, that has been trying a lot of different business hacks, but don't seem to be feeling like you're moving forward, then that might be a perfect one for you to attend. So I hope to see you in that. And truly, once again, I hope this conversation was meaningful, was valuable, and with wherever you are in your business, it has truly helped you move forward. I'll see you around very soon. Take care.